Hello. Think this is working? Let's hope so.
And it's the same connector also, so now it's just impossible to know which what it actually is instead.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you get things from China. They'll just like do whatever they want. They'll just like produce whatever chemicals are because it's like self-centered or something like that. Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Hello, hello,
You
hello.
good? You good?
Good. Yeah. So this is just for recording. This
Yeah.
is not okay.
So I'm gonna quickly introduce and give some house rules and everything, and we'll start with your talk. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thing to kind of meet some peers and talk about
Yeah, this hobby is showing the Zoom.
I used to be much more active in the UK, but here in Berlin, just been around the family and stuff more.
Okay.
This time, 12 years now. I'm old.
Just get the others and settle down because I'll start now.
Others in the
Yeah, just in this common area. But I think everyone's here. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. All right, folks, can I have your attention at the back? Just 2 minutes, please. I won't take very long. Yeah, welcome to the Kubernetes and Cloud Native Berlin Meetup, the September edition. I really hope you all had a good summer. I keep hearing stories of how Berlin summer is a story in itself. But I hope we were able to enjoy a beautiful autumn day. I know I certainly did. It was quite spectacular, actually. Felt like, a little extension of summer itself. But yeah, I'm happy we were able to congregate after the summer and to see so many of you together. Thank you for coming. A big round of applause to all of you. Thank you for making it. Yeah. And also thank you for making it through all of the security protocol and the registration processes. Yeah, it's a meetup, but it's always good to be secure, right? So, yeah. And just a couple of housekeeping rules from my side. We should ideally try and keep the spaces as tidy as we found them. There are a few garbage I'm eating up my words. Garbage disposal bags near the bins, and we may need some of you to help at the end of the meetup to kind of put some of the pizza crates in there. And of course, please help yourselves to beverages and beers and all the other items that are around for refreshments. They're all for you. We're very happy that you came. We really hope you get something productive out of today. If not, just enjoy yourselves and meet other community builders and members and contributors, et cetera, et cetera. As far as the code of conduct is concerned, yeah, there's just a simple rule. Please agree to disagree. I know we all work for a diverse range of companies, and that's the idea of putting these meetups together so that you feel represented in your own ways, and you also kind of have that leverage to go like, I learned something new today. I'm not sure I entirely agree, but it's good that I kind of have this debate as well. And yeah, we're all here for a healthy debate, so please indulge, please engage, and yes, let's agree to disagree at the end of it. There are a few stickers that are kept everywhere. Yeah, so feel free to help yourselves to it. We haven't kept any stickers for Headlamp, which Renee is presenting about today, but you will be able to share your thoughts and learn more about the project. So I'm quite excited about that too. And last but not the least, yes, today's meetup is organized and presented by Microsoft in the Microsoft Berlin office. We have pizzas that will come in a bit, and our hope for this is to kind of find a space within the office as well to convert into something that we can regularly keep doing meetups in, as we've done with other offices, with the Mercedes-Benz office earlier this year. So hope you enjoy this space. And lastly, yes, thanks to Aditya and Grafana Labs for all of the beers that you'll have today. And yeah, and he's the second speaker, so I'm sure you'll also get to have like very wonderful, engaging chats with him. And yeah, so the request is you enjoy yourselves to the fullest, but yes, try and help us if possible. It's a community building effort after all, where we need some help. And yeah, come to me if you have any questions, if you have any topic in mind, if you'd like to present in future meetups. I'm here and I'm happy to listen and happy to give you a speaking slot. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll begin with René's talk.
Okay, hello. Yeah, this is crafting your platform experience. So, yeah, you've got Kubernetes. What are you going to do with it? How can you provide UIs? So, firstly, what is Headlamp? So, Headlamp's vision is a unified, accessible user experience for learning and operating the ecosystem of CNCF tools. So, this is a graphic from 2018. Lots of CNCF projects. Then there were 16 of them. And each organization uses a different subset of them, plus extra things outside of that. So now there's like over or nearly 200 different projects, plus there's even more in the broader landscape. So much functionality is available, and choice is good, right? Yeah, we have lots of consistency. We have CRDs, controller pattern. We have YAML, and a bunch of fairly standardized tools. And each one of these has a standalone UX, which is good in some ways. But learning different UIs can be a challenge, potentially hundreds of UIs. The learning curve can be difficult, and there's context switching between different apps. So if you have like maybe using 10 different tools, 10 different apps. So it feels like as a community we could be building something better upstream. And this is the vision of Headlamp. So Headlamp's a rich modern user interface. Everything you can expect in a Kubernetes UI. You could see workloads, pods, namespaces. It's open source and a CNCF sandbox project. So it has some other things. It's multi-cluster, it's real time, so things update as they're changed inside Kubernetes. And you can configure it to be read-only, if you like. Okay, so getting to that's Headlamp, and getting to the part of this talk. One benefit of it is that it's extensible. And here you can see in the top left, the logo is being changed a little bit. It's generic Kubernetes, so it works with lots of different vendors' flavor of Kubernetes. And Headlamp's available in two different styles. You can have it through the web and as a desktop app. And it's available in lots of different places, like through Chocolatey, Winget. It's available inside Docker Desktop, inside Podman Desktop, and inside Minikube. So yeah, back to the extensible part. You can change just a very simple thing like the logo. Thank you. And but you can also pretty much completely customize every single part. So yeah, here's a delivery platform made with Headlamp by a company called EPAM. And you can see they've not just changed the logo and the themes and the colors, but they've made some pretty extensive changes. Like it could almost be considered a whole new app in some ways. They've even gone further than what's shown here. This is an older version. Yeah. So one of the benefits of this is they've basically said, okay, we're using these set of different tools, and we want to provide a UI just for our users, just using the tools that we use. We don't want to. They didn't want to have like provide 5 different apps and then maybe a portal, a separate cloud portal. So that's a bit more of the vision for Headlamp, a Kubernetes UI for making your own platform with UIs for CNCF projects. Yeah, there's hundreds of CNCF projects, plenty of UIs to make. So now I'm going to show you a bunch of the plugins for different projects that people have made so far. So we have a Flux plugin. And so Flux, probably a lot of people know. It's a very popular project. It's for GitOps. So yeah, so this Flux has some UIs, but a couple of them are not maintained anymore. So there's been a few people who've got together, some from the Flux community, and said, hey, we want a UI. Why not in Headlamp? Okay, great. So this kind of shows one other benefit of building inside Headlamp is that Flux lets you look at all the things to do with Flux, but you can also link to Kubernetes resources. So you can link to things like namespaces or pods even, and things like this. So, here's another project, and this one is quite a good one for security. It can show you deployment vulnerabilities, and it can also look for configuration issues. Inspect a gadget. So this one's to do with EBF gadgets, and so they're basically used to grab information from inside Linux. You can kind of like dig around in there. Whatever you can find inside Linux, you can kind of grab out and then put here. And so what this project has done is they've made a whole bunch of different gadgets available to make them easy to use. So there's also, they've made a UI for Headlamp. And basically the idea is that for every gadget, there's a UI for it. So they can do things like look at socket connections. You can look at the time to live on the round trip time for TCP connections. Yeah, or basically any information inside Linux you can grab. Here's one that helps if you're used to using Docker Compose tool. There's a project called Compose, which basically converts the Docker Compose manifest into a Kubernetes one. So yeah, there's a UI for this one. Probably most people have used Helm with Kubernetes. So there's also a plugin for Helm inside Headlamp. And so there's this thing called Artifact Hub, where a lot of artifacts for the Kubernetes community are placed. And so this basically integrates with Artifact Hub and Helm charts to let you search through the different apps that are available, and then also install them through there. So this shows that you can make some plugins just for the desktop version of the app, because most likely you probably don't want to let users in cluster install things through here. Or you might not even want to have this at all because you're using GitOps. Yeah, Virginia Tech is another group that have made their own custom platform with Headlamp. And so one of the plugins that they've constructed is for Cert Manager, which is another CNCF project. It manages certificates. And yeah, this one is good for creating and ensuring policies. It's another security-related one. So you can sort of set a whole bunch of policies and then check to see, you can get a report of which policies are failing and passing in your cluster. And of course, Prometheus. Yeah, there's a UI for that as well. As this one's gone through a few iterations, and there's a bunch of things changing for it. It's maybe not as advanced as some of the other UIs, but it basically does kind of what you would want. Yeah, so those are the plugins. So lots of different projects have started creating UIs for Headlamp, and the idea is that if somebody doesn't want to create a dedicated UI, or maybe they want to have a consistent UI with the rest of the plugins, they can create one in there. And our goal is to kind of help with any CNCF projects or any open source projects that want to create a plugin. Yeah, so there's some information about how you can get started with making plugins. We have like examples and things like this. There's also a repo of like publicly available plugins that people can look through to sort of see how things are done. We have some integration with VS Code to do things like formatting on save and make it a bit nicer for running plugins and things like that. And yeah, on Artifact Hub, if you want to publish a plugin, you can go to Artifact Hub and look there. So, yeah, so it's working, good. So now I might just do a little demo of how you might create a very basic plugin to start, basically make a platform UI for Kubernetes. So this is basically what Headlamp looks like by default. Yeah, here I've just got a couple of different clusters set up in my kube config, one local and one remote. So you see here, you've got, yeah, this Headlamp logo, some basic things. You can look in namespaces. You can look at sort of what workloads are running, what pods are running, basically all the things that you would expect. So if we start here, first I'm going to just change the logo. So hopefully it should work. Let's see. Okay, it hasn't gone to sleep. So yeah, we've replaced the logo there. And then you can add like pretty much everywhere in the UI, there's hooks in there to either replace it or adapt it to what you want to do. So this one here, we've added this little pod counter here. Maybe we might want to do that. And okay, so you might want to add a help button. So this would add a help button to, yeah, maybe you have like some documentation that you want to add. So there's like a help button up here. Yeah, maybe you might want to add, change the sidebar to sort of add like basically whatever sort of components you want, you can change in the sidebar. You can add them or remove them. Maybe you want to add a little feedback form here. So you can use any sort of JavaScript, React type things. So another thing that's quite common is people don't want to show a lot of these things to their users because, so maybe you don't want to show namespaces because you're only giving this one team one namespace. So you can remove anything you don't like. And yeah, so you can also like inside some of these sections, we can say, okay, we want to, if it's a service resource, we want to add a little section in here. So we might want to use this to add so yeah, we might want to use this to add like some buttons in there, some links. So on a service page, we might want to like, I don't know, link out to Grafana, for example, or another tool. So yeah, so that's basically, that's the little demo, and thank you. So I think we have plenty of time for any questions or answers if you want. Yes?
Is there any kind of internal communication system where there's a shared state between the different UI components? So like if you had one tool, would it be able to know anything about another tool?
Renee, would you mind also repeating the questions
Sorry,
for the live recording? Because
Okay, sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, the question is there any kind of shared state between the different UI components you build, or are they all isolated, just collected in one big app and there's no knowledge of other areas?
Okay, so the question was, do the plugins have a shared state, or are they completely isolated? And do they have a knowledge of each other? So the answer is that each plugin has access, well, each plugin is JavaScript, and it basically has access to the whole app, theoretically. There's some sort of isolation that we do where we try to constrain it to within one JavaScript context. And then there's an event system where you can listen for events like, okay, all the plugins have now loaded, you can start doing your thing, or maybe your own custom events. So you might say plugin 1, plugin 2. Plugin 1 might say, okay, now I've done something. And then the plugin 2 can listen for that event and then act on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, oh, sorry.
Oh no, you go. And then.
I actually have 3 questions. Just put it down. We are using Backstage as a developer portal. How does a tool like Headlamp relates to that? So can it be integrated as a plugin, or is it like something which basically does the same, or how does it work together?
Yep. So the question was, we're using Backstage as a developer portal, and how does Headlamp integrate with that? Can it be used as a plugin or something like that? So the answer to that is, yeah, we currently have some work going on a Backstage plugin. So the idea is that people have said, okay, what are we going to use for Kubernetes inside Backstage? And some people said, oh, we would like to use Headlamp. So then that's how that got started. So the idea is that then you could use Headlamp within Backstage for Kubernetes related things. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Kind of. Then when I was looking into Headlamp, there are like basically 2 more modes, right, that you deployed on your cluster as a kind of server-side mode, but you have also like a desktop version. Like, and you showed all the plugins and so on. Is this then available always for both, or only like for the upstream server one? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so the question was, you have two versions of Headlamp, one which is a desktop one and one which is an in-cluster through the web one. And how do the plugins work with both of those? So, so the app actually comes with a couple of plugins by default, and one of them is a plugin store or a plugin catalog. So in the app version, you can go into the plugin catalog and search through there for any plugins that people have uploaded to Artifact Hub. So Artifact Hub is quite good. It does some pretty good things for security. So you can say, okay, this is an official plugin. This plugin's been verified. This plugin is from a CNCF project. Or you can also have just anyone uploaded the plugin onto the internet. So yeah, so by default, we hide those anyone's uploaded them onto the internet ones, but you can also enable to view those. And the through the web one, also the in-cluster one, we call it, where you deploy it into your cluster. You basically get to select which plugins you want to use. So the idea is if you don't have any, yeah, so actually, there was one other thing I was going to show. So what I've done here is I've just enabled a couple of plugins. So you see here, this is the Flux plugin, because Flux is installed on this cluster, and here's this Inspector Gadget plugin. So yeah, this one's, let's see if it works today. Okay, not much activity. It's just a test cluster. So yeah, so just say you just want to use Flux, or you just want to use Inspector Gadget and not anything else. You would just select those two plugins in your, however you deploy, through Helm or through just any other configuration. And was that?
And yeah, the third one
Okay.
was we are using EKS, and I know that authentication was an issue, at least when I was looking into Headlamp. So is there any way of like using the inbuilt IDT SSO authentication with EKS? So I don't know if it's an issue
Yeah.
also other.
So there was so the question was, we use EKS, and when I tried it last, there was an issue with single sign-on. And yeah, the answer is the last release. We fixed a couple of single sign-on related issue, and then another issue on Mac to do with EKS, where it was not passing the environment variables through on Z shell. So, and there was another DNS related one. So you could have run into all three, or all three of those issues, yeah. And
I think this is great. We can finally say that Flux is a UI, which is the question I always got. It was really annoying. My actual question is, like, how, and that's kind of related to the SSO one, how is like authentication management, like in cluster deployments? I'm thinking in the context of like multi-tenancy and stuff like that. That's like generally the complicated stuff.
yeah, so the question was, how is authentication handled in cluster? Because especially with multi-tenancy, because that's often complicated. The answer is yes, it's complicated. There's dozens of different authentication methods that people use, but like we test with things like Keycloak and DEX, and we also have people who set up a proxy in front, and then they do their own authentication, and then they pass things through, like really custom things. And yeah, with we also test with EKS and with Azure and a whole bunch of other different things. So yeah, it really depends what your authentication method is, but there are lots. We try to have a guide for each one, and then we have people who test them on each release. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Okay. Yes?
I am interested in how to kind of onboard clusters dynamically, right?
Yeah, so the question was, I'm interested in how to onboard clusters dynamically. Yeah, so we have, currently we have some work going on for using Headlamp as a Minikube UI. And so that's basically replaces here, and then you can basically create a cluster here. I remember that you work on Cluster API, and yeah, we haven't got anything special for Cluster API yet, although people have talked about it. I think I hid. Yeah, somewhere in here. So yeah, basically we have some things with CRDs, and I think Cluster API works through CRDs. So theoretically you could, if you installed Cluster API in your cluster, and then Headlamp works mostly with RBAC. So if you give permissions within Kubernetes to that user who's using Headlamp, then they'll have access to Cluster API. But we don't have any special UI yet for Cluster API. But if you're interested, I'd like to talk about it afterwards. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks very much.
We're going to take a short break now. There are no further questions for Renee, but Renee will obviously be around, so you can chat more about it. One quick thing for the beers. If you take one out of the fridge, please keep one in the fridge. It's not a perfect system, but we're trying to find solutions here, as you can see. Pizzas will be there shortly, but in the meantime, yes, of course, feel free to mingle in this space. And if you do need to go out of this space, let me know. I'll accompany you. Treat yourselves as minors who need a parent. For just these 2 hours. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, and applause for Renee. Yes.
So I guess, sorry, my question was a little bit loaded as well there. So I guess it's kind of out of scope for you guys to model workflows or anything like that, right? Like you're more interested in the surfacing of information and managing individual workloads rather than having a kind of like how things fit together or like the platform building part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't done anything like that.
Yeah.
But I know EPAM, I think, did something like that,
Yeah.
where they have like basically some steps in their UI to
Seems
guide
to be the
people.
hot topic at the moment. The
It is?
platform
Okay.
builders, the workflow orchestration, and
Yeah.
the models sitting underneath that. So yeah, that's kind of where my
Are there any standards for that yet?
well,
or-
there's definitely companies pushing for them.
They're companies, okay.
Yeah. So one big player is Humanitech. You might have heard of them.
Okay.
They build a product called the Platform Orchestrator,
Okay.
and then there's an open source.
There's so many tools. I'm like,
There's an open source CNCF one, which is called Cratix.
okay.
And that one I think looks good, and also there's a big success story where NetWest, they have 70,000 developers or some crazy number like that, and they moved them over to this platform model of, they call it Promises. It's all Kubernetes based, but it basically, it's a simple concept of simplifying the journeys for the users via an API
Yeah.
specification, and then hiding the complexity of all the workflow orchestration in the back end behind. And this is where obviously the resource management of Kubernetes comes in quite handy, because you have all that
Yeah.
retry
Can
and stuff
imagine.
out of the box. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tooling that you can sort of
Yeah.
hook into it.
It's all YAML nowadays. I mean,
Yeah.
like, what can I say as a platform engineer? Like, yeah.
It's quite.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because
We started making this, I guess, for different clients that they were helping out, and they're like, okay, they want to do this, let's just tweak it a little bit, and then like.
No, I definitely see the market for like a unified view, and one of the gaps with developer portals is, I don't know how many horror stories you've heard about Backstage, but there is a number of them, and so I think there is a need for putting reasonable and sensible developer portals in front of backends. Yeah? So that's kind of sometimes the missing link there, and I think this is where your product is also quite well positioned to cater for some of those.
Yeah, I think there's lots of like tools where they say, okay, we don't really want to do a UI, but
Flux. I mean, Flux super successful, right? Beats
Yeah.
Argo CD by a mile, and one of them has a UI, the other don't. But yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate sometimes, and then like, yeah.
I personally try and never use a UI because I'm terribly bad at it, but to each their own, right? And especially for we use Datadog at the moment, and the discoverability in that tool is just like crazy good. Like you couldn't build a platform like that as an engineering team in an organization.
Yeah, I think I haven't looked at it for some years, maybe 5 years ago. It was good then.
Their feature releases now is like drinking from the fire hose. It's almost as busy as the CNCF feed. It's like mental, the amount of, and they're becoming basically a platform as a product, if you will. Yeah. So they're definitely covering all those spots where they still have gaps. Then they're now doing workflow automation.
I think, probably when I saw it, it was maybe even longer than 5 years, because I think it was kind of like a logs related.
They now do everything. They do cloud posture management. They do scorecards. They do everything. It's mental. It's like your one stop basically. Give us all your data and we'll make sense of it for you. It's a good product. Expensive, but
I think people like that type of thing sometimes.
Say again?
I think people like that type of thing sometimes.
Oh, it's like plug and play. I mean, especially for a startup where none of this is your IP and you're just trying to find your product market fit. It makes perfect sense to go down that route. But the problem so often is then that if you don't constrain the variance of possible configurations for your engineering teams, then you have a migration problem down the road.
Yeah, because you have like one person joins, they add their tool, another person, another tool.
Yeah, and they all configure it slightly differently, and then you have to make sense of it all, and it's just like, where do we start, right?
Yeah, that's what.
And this is where migration then, if you're so in bed with a vendor like that, then it almost becomes impossible. It used to be bad with Elasticsearch, I remember that as a service, and the metrics shops as a service. Even then, that was bad, like trying to get out of them and building your own famous and whatever else. And now it's just like, if you've got all your CI pipelines, everything managed by that one thing, like, how are you going to leave? I don't think you're ever going to leave.
Yeah, it's always. Yeah, I don't like to be in that type of position.
Yeah, no, it's. Like, it depends on how much money the company makes, right? Like eventually it all pans out. And I've maintained.
Can we walk this way to the?
Thanks for the talk, by the way.
Oh, welcome.
I've been maintaining a lot of Java-based distributed systems in Kubernetes. I think I'd rather be in a closed shop ecosystem like Datadog than doing that again, like from a maintainer's perspective.
Yeah, because I guess they do a lot of it.
That stuff when it goes wrong, like an InfluxDB or a Kafka cluster blowing up and stuff like that. It's just like your weekend's gone. It's like, damn.
You just triggered me with the influx DD.
Sorry.
I was using it early on. It was cool, but it broke a lot.
It's a pig, right? Like, when you have to run it, it's just like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Kafka is no better, Elasticsearch is no better. Like all these Raft kind of things, they're all equally bad in their own magical ways.
Yeah.
Having that as a convenience service, I pay someone for. You know what?
Yeah. And then you get your weekends back.
Yeah, you get your weekends back, and yeah. There's also not much creativity to that, right? Like building your own ETL pipelines and all of that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's true.
All
I'm gonna grab a pizza.
then, yeah, nice.
Hello.
Yeah,
How are you?
actually, I have a few questions about you.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a nice presentation. So
Ah,
you
thank
can prefer to pick up something. I'm not hungry or you're eating.
Okay. I'm starving.
I mean, there's nothing else left, sorry.
I mean, yeah, like I could just keep one on the side.
Yeah? Okay, cool. That's vegan and gluten free.
Is it okay if I take?
Yeah, of course. Go for
That's
it.
amazing. Thank you. Sorry. What was your name?
I'm from China.
Oh, great.
But I studied my bachelor, my master in the TU Berlin. I can speak German. I mean, you're German?
Sorry, my German's not very good.
Okay.
Apologies.
Yeah, and I work in Berlin already for. You can eat it. I mean, don't worry about it. I already work in Berlin already for 10 years as a cloud DevOps engineer. But my daily work is just use that tools like Kubernetes or Prometheus or something like monitoring system. I mean, to migrate our product, which developed by company into the AWS cloud. And actually, I also want.
So you're
that
moving
deeper-
things from
yeah.
Kubernetes to AWS?
Yeah, just use the Kubernetes itself. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, Kubernetes or Prometheus itself. And actually, I want to dive deeper into the underlying levels of Kubernetes and Prometheus, like develop some the API, Kubernetes API extension or develop some operator.
Yeah,
like that. That's what you did.
It's super interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
what you are doing right now. Yeah.
yeah, we haven't done so much of that, but I like how you can write controllers and operators, and then also all the source code is available. So we use some libraries from Kubernetes for Helm, for all the Kubernetes config related stuff.
How should I begin to learn it? I mean, as your experience. I mean, according to your experience, how should I start?
For me,
Because I want to looking for a job inside the field. I mean, not just migrating the cloud. I mean, our
Right.
product into the cloud, but also something
so-
deeper.
So I have a colleague he's now a maintainer of a project called RunC, which is basically used by all the Kubernetes things. So what he did was he just started fixing a few small issues and learning that way, and then asking people, explain this to me, and people were happy. And then he said, yeah, after a while, and now he's a maintainer, like a couple of years, or maybe 1.5 years later. So yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. If you go to
In my company, I have no one to ask about that question, about the underlying level of Kubernetes or Prometheus, because we all don't have this kind of experience.
Right.
It doesn't need. I mean, it is not needed. It's not necessary for our daily work. So we just use it, not develop the writing the manifest, the script to you know that.
Does your company have an open source policy or something like this?
No, I think so.
Because for us, we're allowed to basically fix bugs
Okay.
in software that we use.
Is your company, you work in the Microsoft?
I work in Microsoft, yeah.
So company developed, have developed that product, the headlamp, or because I'm first time to know.
Yeah, so
The headlamp.
we were working for another company in Berlin. It was called Kinfolk, and they, yeah, they did lots of like consulting and made some Kubernetes things for their clients to use to fix whatever problems they had. And so they tried to do a lot of things open source. And so they needed a dashboard for a headlamp, and they said, okay, this client needs this client needs that, and they just made it for them.
And develop it. Is it a,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to ask for your experience.
Yeah, so that was, I went to this KubeCon EU. It was a conference. It was called KubeCon.
Okay.
And there they have this thing called Contrib Fest. And I found that useful to meet other people from projects. So I've met people from Cube Armor. I met people. There's all these different projects. And
Name of the conference, the
KubeCon.
Just take place in
If you search for Kubernetes conference, you'll probably. There's lots of little ones. There's some in all over Germany. There's like smaller ones,
Germany.
and the big one called KubeCon happens once a year, and it moves between different European cities. But yeah.
Yeah, you should suggest anything.
But if you can, at your company, find out about, like, okay, you have a bug in Prometheus, or you want something improved in Prometheus, just ask in your company, hey, I want to work on this. I want to fix this thing. I want to improve.
Okay.
And then maybe they'll let you.
And what motivated you to develop that plugin directly in the headlamp? Because your company need this. Need this. Okay, understood. And does Microsoft also have their own developed Kubernetes the graphic user interface? I mean, not the headlamp, but their own.
Yeah, they have.
Like AWS, they have their own cloud.
They have their own portal. It's similar to AWS, and it's got like 1,000 buttons everywhere. It's like, what does it do? So yeah, this one is more for like only having the few things that you need. And yeah, they also have like VS Code extension, which is quite good. I use that one. I like it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
And you.
So